And Jesus said to his disciples, "Compare me to someone and tell me who I am like." Simon Peter said to him, "You are like a righteous angel." Matthew said to him, "You are like a wise philosopher." Thomas said to him, "Teacher, my mouth is wholly incapable of saying whom you are like." Jesus said, "I am not your teacher. Because you have drunk, you have become intoxicated from the bubbling spring that I have tended." And he took Thomas, withdrew, and spoke 3 sayings to him. When Thomas returned to his companions, they asked him, "What did Jesus tell you?" Thomas said to them, "If I tell you even one of the sayings he spoke to me, you will pick up stones and stone me, and fire will come from the stones and consume you." The Gospel of Thomas, saying 13. Now, I'd like to tell you an inspirational story based upon this saying. The village of Cana was small, its dusty streets winding between clay homes bleached pale by the relentless sun. At the far edge of town stood a workshop, its doorway framed with drying jars and bowls. Inside, the scent of wet earth and smoke from the kiln hung heavy in the air. This was the home of Elib, the potter. Elib was no ordinary craftsman. His vessels, though simple, seemed to carry something unseen. Water poured from them tasted fresher. Grain stored in them stayed longer. And lamps made by his hand gave off a warmer glow. People said it was because Elib spoke blessings over the clay. Others whispered he had secrets that could not be explained. 3 young men often gathered outside of his shop, watching him shape clay on his wheel. They argued in hushed voices about who Elib truly was. One evening, just before the Sabbath, they decided to confront him directly. The air was cooling, and lamps flickered in the streets as they entered the workshop. The first, Ezra, stood tall and spoke quickly. "Elib, you are like a righteous angel. Your hands bring purity into what was once only dirt." The second, Levi, added with a scholar's tone, "No, he is like a philosopher. His words carry the weight of wisdom that makes men think deeply." But the third, Thomas, shifted uneasily. He looked down at his hands, then back at the old potter, and spoke slowly. "I cannot say who you are like. My words are too small, but when I listen to you, it feels as if I have drunk water from a spring that never runs dry. I leave both filled and thirsting for more." At this, Elib set aside the clay he was shaping. His eyes, dark, kind, and filled with hidden light, rested on Thomas. He beckoned him to remain while the others left. The workshop grew quiet, except for the faint hiss of the kiln. Elib leaned close and whispered 3 truths, each one striking Thomas's soul like lightning. They were not riddles, nor ordinary counsel, but living words, truths so sharp they carved away fear, pride, and doubt in a single breath. Thomas trembled. He wanted to shout them aloud, to etch them into the walls, to let the whole world hear. But Elib, gripping his shoulder, shook his head no. When Thomas emerged, the other two rushed forward. "What did he tell you?" Ezra demanded. "Yes, tell us," pressed Levi. Thomas's face was different now. His eyes burned with something they had never seen before. He spoke softly, almost sorrowfully. "If I told you even one of his sayings, you would laugh or mock. Some of you would rage and stone me, and in your anger those stones would burn with fire, not against me, but against yourselves." The two were frustrated, but Thomas would say no more. Years passed. Ezra and Levi remained restless, chasing after teachers and philosophies that promised quick answers. But Thomas was different. He never repeated Elib's secret words, yet his life became their echo. He was the first to help the poor, the first to forgive when insulted, the first to stand unafraid when others cowered. When people asked where his strength came from, he only smiled, and his silence carried more weight than speeches. Though he could not explain Eliab in comparisons, angel, philosopher, or teacher, his life bore witness. Eliab had given him something more than words. He had given him living fire. And friends, like Thomas, we cannot always describe Christ with perfect comparisons, but when we drink deeply of him, our lives themselves become the testimony. We may never speak the secret fully, but we can live in such a way that others see the fire in our eyes and know we have been touched by something eternal. God bless you, my friends.